I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go. It does this now where it mutes me automatically. Welcome. I am Dr. Barry. I am not only a licensed psychologist, I am also an adoption competent therapist. And what that means is I went through a competency to learn additional information about trauma and attachment and how that relates to adoption. There were a lot of things that I saw in the Dima Towers case that I just wanted to talk about. I fully agree with the verdict. His behavior was disrespectful. He did not respond to the authority of the judge, his attorney, any of those things. And I would have been very concerned if the jury had found him guilty of a lesser included and there was a chance that he could be back in society, because it just seemed like he did not know how to manage his anger, his expectations, and this was just a very sad, a very tragic case. And let me just check out the comments. Marissa asks, why wasn't there any kind of psych info or defense? Dima was clearly traumatized. It reminded me of students with reactive attachment disorder. So this is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about reactive attachment disorder, but he may have been showing antisocial personality disorder features. So with any type of mental health defense, the entire mental health of the individual would come in. And reactive attachment disorder, if it's not treated, for some individuals, not for all, but for some individuals, they can end up showing signs of antisocial personality disorder. And that antisocial personality disorder, you are not going to get a not guilty by reason of insanity. And I don't know if we will ever know, because I'm guessing his attorney could have had some type of mental health expert take a look at him. I'm guessing that that information was not helpful to his defense, because no mental health expert even spoke at his sentencing. So I watched Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson, horrific crimes. He did horrible things, but his defense had experts come in to testify about his brain and about all of these things. I wonder if Dima wanted to go straight not guilty, because but he said he was kind of pleading guilty to manslaughter though. They would have accepted manslaughter, but they didn't want to accept uh first degree, which was what he was convicted of. We are going to take a look at his courtroom behavior because it was atrocious. It was very, very atrocious. And I do want to caution uh, that some of the statements he made, and what I mean by some of the statements, let's say he wanted to go back to the Ukraine. By being adopted to the US, I don't know what the process would have been if he could have somehow obtained citizenship again. I don't know. So I do not know how that process would work. It doesn't sound like he went through that process. I also don't know if all of what he said was 100% true, because I did watch his entire police interrogation, and it seemed like he was trying to walk back some of those statements. But to me, watching, a lot of the things he said in the police interview sounded true. It sounded like things that he really believed. And so those are some of my general thoughts. Once again, a so I did not assess him. I cannot speak to his diagnosis, to what is going on with him. I can talk in general about individuals like him. So I have worked with international adoptees, specifically from Russia or the Ukraine. And I did just want to mention, so none of this excuses any of his behavior, okay? But in looking at Ukrainian adoption and reactive attachment disorder, children adopted from institutions, including Ukrainian orphanages, have a higher risk of developing reactive attachment disorder due to lack of consistent bonding. Reactive attachment disorder is a condition where children struggle to form healthy emotional bonds with caregivers, leading to behaviors like difficulty with eye contact, avoiding comfort, and emotional disconnection. Okay. And some of the causes and characteristics are so institutional care, that sometimes the institutions, they have limited staff, lack of appropriate care. The staff really don't make eye contact or really engage with the students. For Dima, I do think that his rejection from his birth family, so after his mother died, it sounds like other relatives tried to keep him, but his behavior was likely too much for them to handle, and he ended up in an orphanage. The war could have had an impact because he ended up having to move, because his first orphanage was closer to the Ukrainian-Russian border, and at some point he had to move. I do think they had hearings to determine what could come in and what stayed out. And 14 years old for a international adoption, that is very old. Very, very old. So 14, that is that is a lot. And then Nashay is saying that he was adopted before the war started. I thought he mentioned that, like, there were some things going on. Let me see. When was Crimea invaded? That was in 2014. So that crisis started in 2014, because it's my understanding. So he mentioned that he was moved before that, and so he's 25. So it could have been before. It could have been before. I thought in his testimony that it came up. Um, so Ukrainian orphanages. So orphanages they want to adopt out people, and orphanages will sometimes lie. They will sometimes lie about the mental health background of the family. They will sometimes lie about the behavior of the child. There can be issues that come up with adoption. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, so that's what during his testimony he said that he moved orphanages when the war started, and his own brother and uncle not wanting him after his mother died, that was likely a thing. Um, Now I do think that the part of the reason why mental health might have stayed out is I wonder if a mental health expert would have diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder. Okay. So when we look at reactive attachment disorder and um, antisocial personality, okay, so they are not the same. They both share links with early childhood trauma. Both disorders can have overlapping behaviors such as dishonesty, cruelty, lack of remorse, difficulty with social relationships. Antisocial personality disorder is considered to be a more serious diagnosis, including evidence of conduct disorder in adolescence. Reactive attachment disorder may be misdiagnosed as antisocial personality disorder. Um, and so, one of the core issues with reactive attachment is that lack of secure attachment to a primary caregiver. Uh, Dima wanted to go into his childhood, and he was not allowed for some reason, and he was not happy with that. We will see that when we watch his testimony. So within antisocial personality disorder, what's the difference? So within antisocial personality disorder, it's a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others, beginning in adolescence, going into adulthood. Once again, there can be that overlap. Um, all right. And then reactive attachment disorder and its relationship to psychopathy. Doo, doo, doo. Because I think the problem sometimes comes. So, reactive attachment disorder is normally viewed as a disorder of childhood. As the individual grows into an adult, sometimes that, if it's not treated, can turn into other issues. I also think it was a concern. He didn't seem to want treatment. Dima did not seem to want help. I don't know if Dima might prefer prison over a mental health hospital. I'll say that again. Okay. I'll say that again. Dima might prefer prison over a mental health hospital because in a mental health hospital, he would have to have treatment. He didn't seem to like to talk about his problems. He seemed to have issues with women. Like that seemed like he seemed to have a lot of very, very deep rooted issues, and he seemed to need to control. And so, an individual like him in a mental health hospital, he could then become a risk to the other patients. Okay. So out in California, their prisons became, this was back in like the early 2000s or so, their prisons became, they became overcrowded. And so what they did is they started housing prisoners inside of mental health hospitals. But that caused problems because individuals with antisocial personality disorder in a treatment setting, that is going to cause problems. And so those are just some of my thoughts. Once again, I was not involved in this at all. And let me check. There we go. All right. Thank you for watching on mobile. If you're watching on mobile and if the view looks weird, you can hop over because there are two streams going right now. There is the regular stream and then there's the mobile size stream. Okay. So let's watch at his defense opening statement because Dima is going to get upset. Like he's going to start tearing up and everything. Like he's going to become very emotional when the defense starts talking. So let's watch this part.
It has a lot to do with everything that I've been through, everything that I've seen. On the date that the state is talking about, Dima Tower was a few days short of his 22nd birthday. He had been in this country for approximately 7 to 8 years. He came from Ukraine, where he was in foster care prior to coming to this country. He was in foster care, you will hear, because his mother passed away when he was very young, and his family in Ukraine just didn't want to deal with him. So they put him in foster care in a country at war, where he was raised until two strangers picked him up and brought him to America. I'm basically a nobody coming from nowhere. That's what Mr. Tower said. This trial is going to be a little bit different. If you're expecting that I'm going to stand here and say that Mr. Tower is not guilty of anything, you would be incorrect. We talked during jury selection about different levels of murder and different levels of homicide.
I think he's crying.
Let's continue for a moment. Let's see if we can continue.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Gilman.
So the decision that you collectively as a group and individually will have to come to is whether or not Mr. Tower has the ability to fully form the.
It's difficult for, I think,
Sure.
here. Let's take a short break. Members of the jury,
All right. So Dima is crying uncontrollably. So he is crying a lot. And my general thoughts about this,
you're going to get tired and decent, okay? Everybody, please.
to me, he is crying for himself and his situation, because I don't believe he shed a tear when the state was talking about what he did. So when the state talked about what he did, I don't think he cried at all. But then when they start talking about what he's been through and all that he's been through and how this has affected him, now he is showing all of this emotion. But he had no tears. So he was with them from about 14 to almost 22. And he showed, and this was a vicious, okay? So they were, I hope y'all, there's certain words I can't say on YouTube. He used a knife. And I think the father, it was like something like 70, it was over 70 times. The mother tried to escape. He dragged her back and finished. So one knife, I think, broke or he lost it or something. He went and got another knife so this is vicious. This isn't, this is vicious. And on the stand, he is going to admit that he did this, that he thought about this, the thought about doing this started when he was in the car. And his defense probably told him, like, do not say that. I don't know. But not to lie, but like, because they're trying to say it wasn't premeditated. But if it started in the car, then, and Lisa, the fact that I think he was lecturing her, but at like that was her last moment. I am not going to play any of the impact statements. The impact statements from the Tower family, they are powerful, not only from the Tower family, but also the adoptive mother's family. It was just, they were very, very powerful. Robbie was the adoptive father, and Jennifer, y'all correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but Jennifer was the adoptive mother, and Robbie's father wants Dima to change his last name, because on the stand, Dima had the nerve to be like, those aren't my parents, which and so I work with adoptees, and it's okay for once they turn 18. So like if somebody decides to cut ties with their adoptive family, but he was living in their home. He was like, they were supporting him, they loved him, they were doing all of these things. And it didn't feel good. I'm just going to be honest, okay? It didn't feel good. Let me share this tab. All right. So we are going to get to the testimony. Okay. All the trigger warnings. Okay. Because his testimony is, even on direct examination, I didn't think it was great. I didn't think his testimony was all that great on direct. So the judge is going to admonish him to make sure to answer the questions. I wonder if he had issues at other court dates that the judge was aware of, because the way the judge gave the instruction to him and the way that they made sure that that it was his decision, that was that. Now, often trauma survivors, and also direct eye contact is more of so there's some individuals, there are some countries, there are some places where direct eye contact, if there anyone that is Ukrainian in the chat, you can let me know what type of eye contact is normal. Yeah, but so in Ukrainian culture, according to Google, so I don't know, direct eye contact is crucial for greetings to convey sincerity and trust, but prolonged or overly direct eye contact during conversations can be seen as aggressive, especially when speaking with elders or superiors. So I didn't have as big of an issue with his eye contact. His eye contact was not the issue for me. It was more of his emotion and the way that he was answering questions, the way he was getting combative, in my opinion, with his own lawyer, and then also with the prosecutor as well. Okay. So we are going to jump ahead to his testimony. All right. All right. So this is Dima on the stand.
All right, everybody may be seated. All right, state.
Your Honor, the state is resting its case in chief.
All right, the state has rested their case in chief, so I'll turn to the defense. Mr. Gilman.
Defense calls Dima Tower.
All right, Mr. Tower, can you please stand and face the clerk? Madam Clerk, can you swear in the witness?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
So he is making eye contact right there. When he was getting sworn in, it did look like he made eye contact. I don't know if Dima would have agreed. And also, this was so heinous. The state might have wanted life without the possibility of parole. I mean, the state and also the family might have been upset if he had gotten 15 or 20 years or something. The family probably would have been upset. Oh, defense wanted 40 years. So y'all know, the chat is always more knowledgeable than I am when it comes to some of these specifics. All right. His eye contact was very selective. And sometimes avoiding eye contact can be a way to manage emotions. It can also be a way to show, like, I'm not even going to look at you. It can be a defiant thing. Florida has no parole. Perfect. Oy. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and get this
You may be
started.
seated. Mr. Gilman, when you're ready.
Can you just move up a little closer and make sure you're talking in the microphone there, okay? Can you please tell us your name?
Dima James Tower.
And Mr. Tower, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay. And where, I noticed you have an accent. Where were you born?
I was born in Ukraine,
What part of Ukraine?
in far east part, Luhansk. That is borders with Russia.
And when did you come to live in the United States?
I came in 2015.
So you were living in Ukraine in February of 2014 when there was an incursion into Crimea? I use a lot of big words there. I'm sorry. Were you living in Ukraine in February of 2014?
All right. So I also wanted to mention English is his second language. So English, now he was exposed. So he says that he didn't speak English before he came, and that might be true. I do not know. Sometimes in some orphanages, they will teach English, especially, and then if there are missionaries or church people that come, sometimes they will teach English classes as well. But he said that when he initially moved here, he did not speak English. He did not do well in school. He ended up dropping out of school in 10th grade. He moved to West Virginia to live with Robbie's father, with his adoptive grandfather, and he eventually did Job Corps. That's my understanding of the testimony. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And where were you living when you were in Ukraine before you came to the United States? Where were you living? Like what
Well,
type of house?
before the orphanage?
No, I was talking about the orphanage. Tell me about that. What type of place was that?
Should I talk about my life before the orphanage, or?
We will, sure. How did you end up getting to an orphanage?
I'm going to object to all this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll allow brief background, very, very brief. So let's not spend too much time. Okay?
Sure. And Your Honor, actually, if we could approach briefly.
You may.
I'm going to fast forward. I think Dima really wanted to say certain things, and I think they are limiting certain aspects of it. Which,
So how old were you when you?
so Steph said, I feel the defense attorney didn't prep the defendant either. So I think the defense attorney did. I think Dima is doing exactly what he wants to do. So this is his life that's on the line. It reminds me of Robert Tellis, but worse. So I didn't think it could get worse than Robert Tellis, or who's the other guy? Ali Abulaban. Like this was very bad because if you go to Kathy's video from Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, she mentioned, so I saw Kathy's Dima Towers Part 1. And at the end of it, she mentioned that at the end of Recovery Addict. So Recovery Addict is a streamer here on YouTube. He streams trials and he has great audio. If you want good audio, Recovery Addict, he's I don't know that he's an audio engineer, but he always has great audio. He caught a hot mic moment where it's my understanding the defense attorney said something to the effect of, "You did all the things I told you not to do." That's my understanding of what. So it's my understanding. So if you go over to Recovery Addict stream, for this was day 2. So if you go to Recovery Addict Dima Towers day 2, at the very end, he kept streaming, and it's my understanding he caught that hot mic moment. Okay, so I do think that that his attorney tried to prepare him, but I think Dima did what he wanted. Okay. And that's where this doesn't feel. So I've met with people that have reactive attachment disorder and it presents different. Now, if he was 14, but he's now 24 and still is like this entrenched, this like, ooh, like this is showing more psychopathic type traits to me, just in general, based on watching this. Okay. Let's keep it going.
Your mother passed away.
Well, my mother passed away. You know, I would like to talk about, before I would start about talking about my life before my mother passed away.
I understand that.
know,
The issue that is that I'm hoping that you can respond to the questions.
Yeah, I can respond to the
Sure.
questions, but
Okay, so your mother, how old were you when your mother passed away?
I'm somewhere between 6, 7, or 8.
Okay.
So to me, it was also very odd, and it's okay, but like, and that might have been a very stressful time for him. But the fact that he doesn't know exactly how old he was or the year when his mom passed, that, because most people would know I was in this grade or I was this, or so the fact that he has like a 2-year gap, like 6, 7, or 8 for when his mom died, that was odd to me. So I think the lawyer knows that Dima is a ticking time bomb. Okay. I think the lawyer knows this. Okay. Here's a question. Can anyone have pride? Do you think he thinks he's special because he's been through the worst? So, but the way it comes off is almost in a fragile ego way. So somebody that is truly great and that has a good self-esteem, they don't have to pull other people down. Somebody that has a fragile ego and a fragile sense and a fragile self-esteem, because when the prosecutor starts asking him questions, he's gonna ask the prosecutor, like, "Are you a mom?" Like he's gonna get personal, and that's strange. Anybody that knows me well knows I'm trying to avoid certain words. Okay. Like that's odd.
You, you don't,
I was thinking about this somewhere between those years.
okay.
But I mean, if
You're not gonna-
maybe I can give a little bit of my personal background or something.
Mr. Tower, the way it's going to work the same with all witnesses. You need to listen to the question and then answer only the question that's been asked of you, okay?
Well, it's important that
It may be important, but you need to follow the rules in a courtroom, okay? Please ask your next question.
Sure. Were you just living only with your mom when she passed?
yes,
Okay.
I was.
And then who did you go to live with after that?
I went to live with my brother.
Okay. How long did that last for?
Not long.
Maybe a couple months. So
Okay. And then where did you go?
I went to my uncle's house.
Okay. How long did that last for?
A couple months.
And you eventually end up in the foster care system in Ukraine, correct?
Objection leading.
Sure. Let it.
Yeah, I was in two orphanage or for foster care, orphanage, whatever they call that. The first one I was in before the war, and then
Objection,
I
not
was-
responsive.
Overruled. I think he's trying to give a time frame of when he was in the orphanage. You can answer the question.
I was in the first orphanage in that same region I was born in, the same side of Ukraine. And then when the war started, we were moved to another part of Ukraine, which is somewhere close to the sea.
So I've mentioned here that sometimes avoiding eye contact, there can be a lot of different reasons an individual does not make eye contact because he's not making eye contact with his lawyer or the jurors or anything. He might be looking down to manage his emotion. I am not sure exactly why. Also, he could have had a history. So maybe in childhood in his teens, he might have met criteria for reactive attachment disorder. But some of these signs is leading more, like to me, it's pointing more towards some antisocial, some cluster B personality traits. Okay. That's just my general from watching public information. I can't diagnose him. I don't know. And so, Gossip Rumor and Innuendo asks, are psychopaths born or made? So is that which comes first, genetics or is it environment? What is it? So there has been a lot of research into this, and it's a combination of everything. There are things that make it worse, and there are treatments that can help kids that are displaying conduct disorder that have certain types of behavior. If you do intensive family therapy, if you if there are things that can help that type of that type of behavior. All right. And so it's not that simple of a question. It is a complex interaction between genetic predispositions and environmental factors. Because there are some people that might have that might have had a parent that went to prison for horrific things, and then that person then becomes a police officer and is positive, has like a positive career. That individual goes into the military, that individual becomes a doctor or a nurse. And so it's like, just because one person doesn't necessarily mean that. They have done identical and fraternal twin studies to see what happens. There are also environmental. So severe childhood trauma is a major risk factor. That does not excuse behavior, but it helps me understand it. Learning and socialization. And then, like I said, there are certain things that can amplify the effects of the environment and everything. And so, Kathy, great question. Thank you so much for asking. All right, keep it going.
And Was it around that time that you met the Towers, that they came over to meet you?
Yes, I met him at I believe it was end of summer of 2013. I met him. Well, I actually met him over here after I was sent to visit for a month in the States.
And I thought that was really good. So, especially for his age, the fact that he was sent for a month to visit, I would love to know how things were for that month. I also know that sometimes there's a honeymoon effect, that sometimes people, they have this idea of what life in America or what life with this new family, what it's going to be. Because in his testimony, and I don't know that it's true, he's going to try to like say that the adoptive father never wanted him, but I don't know that there's any evidence. Like, it sounds like this family did all they could for him, and there was no history of them ever harming him. Because I've also covered cases of adoptees that have been victims of harm, even unfortunately, including like death at the hands of their adoptive parents. So there are some adoptive parents that are definitely harmful. The Towers sound like they were a great family, and the only negative things he had to say, it seemed like it was just like normal parenting stuff. And he didn't understand what like normal parents are supposed to do. I don't think he had an idea of what healthy parenting was. So just my general thoughts.
I flew in and met him at the airport.
Was that
For
the
the
first
first
time
time.
that you had met them?
That was for the first time, yes.
And how long after that do you come to this country?
Well, I also came for the second visit. That summer of 2014, I came for the second visit to meet the rest of the family.
And then you come to live permanently when? In 2015?
Well, I was adopted right before the 2015. I was adopted that winter, and I came to live here 2015. Yes.
Okay. Did you go to school here in Sarasota County?
The questions that you're asking me are
Stupid.
very complicated,
Okay. Sorry.
and cannot be simply answered. But I'm forced to simply answer the questions, which cannot, for no right reason, can be answered simply. These are not simple questions.
Your Honor, I object to the editorializing by this witness.
I don't know.
Other witnesses are not allowed to have this kind of conversation with counsel.
Let's try not to have speaking objections, Counselor. Also,
I'm going to pause it real quick. So Rochelle asks, could they have done too much for him? So no, I don't. I think 14 was old to adopt. So he might have needed, let's say he was having severe behavior problems. He might have needed like intense treatment, and he might have refused it. I don't know. I feel like this family tried everything they could. I think in school he might have been bullied. He looks small, like he looks physically small, like he seems shorter. He has an accent. They were in Florida. Sometimes kids are not nice. So I've worked with individuals that have accents and that have been teased and tormented in school. So he moved here when he was in the 8th grade. Imagine starting American school in 8th grade. And I don't know what type of education he received at the orphanage. So I have no, because also he's jumping in to like, because for 9th grade, they're going to expect him to know certain things. He could have had an individualized education plan. If they did decide to homeschool, it might have been because of educational gaps, because there might have been some things that he didn't learn that he was never exposed to. And so once again, we have these conversations so that we can talk and better understand this. Yes, this is live. Welcome, Tucker. And so individualized education plan. So that would be if a student has a learning disability. Also, if they have a mental health diagnosis that's impacting learning, if they're having severe behavior problems. It sounds like he might have gotten into a lot of fights. In some orphanages, to survive, you might have to fight. So there are some orphanages that I've heard stories where kids have had where they're like food was limited, and sometimes bigger kids would bully younger kids for their food, and sometimes there wasn't enough staff. I don't know the conditions of the orphanage he grew up in, but I have heard horrific things about this. I'm glad this is helping you understand. That is why I do this. I also have links in the description for adoption resources. Just in case there is an adoptive parent, it is normal for adoptees to have behavior problems beginning around 11 or 12. Even if adopted from birth, so individuals that are adopted often end up in mental health treatment around somewhere between 11 and 14, and that's being in the family potentially since birth. I've worked with individuals adopted from foster care. I've worked with international adoptions as well. Okay. And for him, his mother passed, and that was how he ended up in the orphanage. For some people, their parent relinquished custody, which can create this like feeling of rejection, abandonment, but he might have felt abandoned by his family um, as well. Okay. All right. So let's keep this going.
Sustain the objection is non-responsive. Please move on, Mr. Gilman.
Do you remember talking to law enforcement in this case and telling them that you went to Northport High School for a little while?
Yeah, right after I was adopted, I went to the school in Northport, Woodland Middle School. And then after I did a half a year in that, I enrolled in Northport High School,
Okay.
which I dropped out of in 10th grade.
Okay. And did you know any English before you came to the United States?
No,
How did you learn English?
by conversating here and there, small talk.
All right. And how long did you live with the Towers prior to, either graduating high school or moving out?
All right, so I want to pause it real quick because I saw a comment from an adoptive mother, from a birth mother, and I have worked with individuals that have chosen that they were in a situation where what was best for their child was for them to be adopted. They weren't in a place. I've also worked with adoptive mothers that were forced. So let's say they were like 16 let's say they were young. They were under the age of 18 when they gave birth, and really their parents forced them to give the child up for adoption. And so adoption impacts everyone, not just the adoptee. And so I've worked with individuals across the continuum. I've also worked with people that have looked at reconnecting with their birth parent, and sometimes that's hard. And I prepare them that everybody is going to have different emotions, because if some birth parents are open to it and they're happy about it, for some people, it's a reminder of that pain. So there can still be a lot of emotions that go. I've also worked with individuals that have lost custody of children in the foster care system, and children that have been adopted through foster care too. So I have worked with a lot of different situations. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that. Yes, he was in 2 different orphanages. The first one was prior to 20. So I guess when he was around somewhere between 6 and 8 to about 13, and then was moved in 2014 in February. So once once issues happened, he was moved to another side of Ukraine. Okay. All right.
again, this is a complicated question, and
Objection to narrative.
the answer, it can be very long because I moved in, I moved out.
Objection to narrative.
I'm going to sustain the objection as non-responsive.
Okay. You said you dropped out after 10.
I also wondered if they could have, let's say he was more fluent in his home language, if they could have provided a translator. Like if he could have spoke in his home language, because sometimes it seemed like they were having communication difficulties. He had been, so he's likely fluent by now, but he might have been more comfortable in his birth language. But I think so. They changed his last name, not his first name. So when he was adopted at 14, they changed his last name to Tower. But I believe his birth name was Dima. Okay. Oh, very, very sad case. And like I said, I've covered these from the other side too, where a child was harmed, and then this is covering it where the child is the one that did harm. All right, we're gonna keep this going.
Grade. Did you move out after that?
No, I stayed, but I didn't really move out on my own. It's just too many family issues.
Okay. And you were not living with them. When did you move back in with them prior to August the 31st of 2023?
I don't understand the question.
So in August of 2023, which is the incident that we're talking about, how long prior to that were you back living with the house? Because I know you had just moved back there, correct?
Well, yeah, I assumed that
Do you need a moment, Mr. Tower?
Ask for the.
Remember the jurors, let's take a break.
All right. And so he became emotional right there, and they're asking about when he came back to the house, and they're gonna take a break. I want to get to cross-examination because it was it was quite fiery. They went back and forth quite a bit. Okay. All right. So let's start from right about here.
that was a long time ago before I went to West Virginia to live on my own.
Please answer
You get
the
it mixed,
question.
but you get
Mr.
the
Tower,
questions mixed up.
Mr. Tower, did you live with Jennifer's father in West Virginia?
That was a long time ago. That was not during the time when I went there by myself.
Why did you go to live in West Virginia when you were living with Jennifer's father?
The time that I did go to West Virginia to live with her father was because
Why?
I'm gonna answer. Let me think about it. We were having fights in the family, and I was going to visit. I was going to see him for
Could we
maybe
have
for a
him
couple-
move away
maybe
from
for
the
a couple
microphone
months.
so we can hear?
Away from them, please.
maybe for a couple months. I was going to visit him until I went to job corps.
Yeah, who set you up in the job corps? Jennifer, didn't she?
What is your point?
Did Jennifer set you up in the job corps?
No,
She probably did.
Did Jennifer set you up to live with her father in West Virginia?
No. What is the
You're
point
un-
of your?
Sorry, I apologize. It was Jennifer's father, not Robbie's father. So it was Jennifer's father that he lived with in West Virginia. I said that wrong earlier. Thank you, Sarah, for gifting a membership. Janice, welcome to the membership. Wow, thank you so much. Dima is short for Dimitri. Okay, thank you. So I think they changed his first name to short form. Okay. So, and I wonder if he wanted that because especially in adoption at 14, if I was the therapist helping support the transition, I would have at 14, I believe the child should be able to have a say of do they want to take on a different first name, because I've had some clients that were adopted out of foster care and there was a lot of trauma associated with their birth name and they wanted a new start, and that teenager wanted a name change. And so I've been like if that's what they want, I've been so as their therapist, as their psychologist, I wrote letters and I would make sure that was communicated to the court, to the guardian ad litem. Somebody mentioned being CASA, that in Virginia, that is a volunteer that is court appointed to also meet with the child and the family, and they speak in court as well. They're a child advocate that is because the guardian ad litem is a lawyer that represents the child's best interest. And so we don't know, because he might have wanted to be a part of a family at 14, but I don't know what he thought that meant. So I've worked with some kiddos that leading up to adoption, they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be great. And then right before adoption, they get scared, especially going from foster care to being fully adopted, because for some of them, having a caseworker, having somebody that could always, like, if something wasn't okay, that they could go to, for some of them, that was kind of scary. The adoptive parent then having all the power, all, like, everything, for some people that was scary. And so I don't know what happened during this time. Somebody mentioned, could the name change, could that loss of identity be what triggered this? Honestly, I think he was mad about something. I don't know what happened. Based on his presentation, it could have been something minor. It could have, I don't know what happened. During his police interrogation, he said that he had those thoughts before. During this, he's going to say he only had those thoughts once or twice. And I don't know. Also, he might have been slightly, I don't think he was completely intoxicated. So I don't think he was so drunk he didn't know what he was doing. He did say that he, like, lost his mind, and he's not doing a mental health defense. And so the judge had to stop and, like, mention something, and the judge had to handle that situation, because Dima um is not pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. Somebody mentioned, could he suffer from extreme oppositional defiant disorder? So if you're so there's something above oppositional defiant disorder, that's conduct disorder, and above conduct disorder is antisocial personality disorder. And typically oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorder would be diagnosed in childhood. It's opposite. ODD can be diagnosed, and I'm not a big fan of oppositional defiant disorder. That's my own general thing. He could also meet criteria for reactive attachment disorder, or it could be antisocial. So that's where you would have to do some type of assessment to see. Now, in order to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, you have to understand that you have to, like, not be aware that what you're doing is wrong. And after this incident, he ran. He hid from the police. So he, like, hid out in the woods or something, and he was arrested the following day because he was found guilty of first degree capital, so 2 counts of first degree and 1 count of, like, running away from the police. Okay? And then, hey, hey, Kathy. All right. So now let me see. All right. So let's keep this question.
Remember, you're under oath, Mr. Tower. You're
I
under
know I'm
oath
under
to tell
oath.
the truth.
You're making no point in your questions. You're forgetting there was
Mr. Tower, you
the
need to
father.
wait for a question to be asked of you and then answer the question, please. Please ask your next question.
You made Jennifer and Robbie's life in their home a living hell, didn't you, Mr. Tower?
Again, there was a lot that went on.
Yes.
Yes, but
Yes.
some adults don't know how to be
Yes.
parents. Yes.
You made their life a living
Yeah,
hell.
no, I didn't. There's some adults don't know how to be parents. You don't know what you're talking about.
In fact,
I came from a harsh environment.
It's probably true.
many people come from a harsh
Yeah,
environment,
but
and they don't kill their parents.
you gotta know how to treat those people correctly so they grow up properly.
Yeah, so how do you need to be treated?
I have been treated. It's too late for that. I'm adult now. But you're talking as if you don't know how to be a parent, and you don't know what it takes.
Are you a parent?
No, I'm not a parent. But you're asking me a.
You made their
Pointless
life a living
question.
hell. In fact,
So often with adoption, so sadly, adoption is like a whole, like, it's a financial system. Like, it's a lot. And there are some places that will doctor records. They will withhold information. A child that's clearly aggressive, sometimes that information won't be in their file. I have heard horror stories about things that have happened, even with foster care. So sometimes if I'm working with a foster youth and I know they have a history of certain behaviors, I make sure that the foster parent is aware. So like let's say they're transitioning to a new home, I would make sure. But sometimes the DSS worker wouldn't always let the person know everything because sometimes they're just desperate to find a new placement and sometimes information was not always given. I will leave that there. Like, okay. This is a lot.
your father told you that you were destroying his marriage.
If I
to
made-
his wife, isn't it true?
If I made their life a
Mr.
living hell,
Folks,
that's probably
hold
had
on,
something to
hold
do
on.
with them.
The two of you are just talking over each
No,
other.
he's
Ms.
refusing to
Fraley,
answer.
You're asking a question, he begins to answer, and then you add to your question.
Yes.
Mr. Tower, when she's speaking, you then begin to answer. And what's happening is none of us are catching the question nor the answer. So let's please follow the procedure that we've done all throughout the trial. Let's please do a question, then we'll do a pause, and then the answer. Mr. Tower, I need you to answer the question and not ad lib and add to it. Okay, sir? Please ask your next question, Ms. Purvis.
So if the adoptive father said, if that's true, I don't know if it's true, but if it's true that the adoptive father said something to the effect of, you're ruining my marriage, as an adoption competent therapist, I would have been having a one-on-one meeting with there's some things you just don't say. And so if him and his wife are having conflict, if there are issues, if they need to get on the same page about certain things, so telling the child, even the adult child, hey, what you're doing is making things worse for us. Because sometimes I worked with some kids where they were trying to separate the marriage because like maybe that child wanted, like sometimes there were issues. So having those conversations are not always helpful. Helen, I agree. I don't know if any of what he was saying was true. Thank you so much for this comment. And please know, so I highlight just regular comments, but thank you for these. Dima comes from a part of Ukraine where they speak Russian. At 8, he was moved to a region where they speaking Ukrainian. At 14, he moved to the US and started learning English. So he doesn't speak any language well. Okay. Here for Dr. Barry's tattletale face and noises. Like, this is a lot. And I keep moving. So we are gonna talk about the Devin Michaels case right after this, but this is important for us to watch.
Did your father tell you that you were disrupting his marriage to Jennifer Tower, his wife?
Jennifer told me that before the adoption, that in the beginning,
He's
Rob,
not responding.
I'm responding. Rob did not want to adopt at all, and then he wanted to adopt a daughter, and then finally he agreed to adopt a son. So he didn't really want to adopt to begin with.
Mr. Tower, there was no question related to wanting to adopt other children. The question was calling for a yes or no response.
Well, he didn't really want to adopt me, is what I'm saying.
Mr. Tower, if you can please listen to the question and answer yes or no. Please ask the question again.
Oy. And so this is where it seems to be beyond reactive attachment. Like, it seems to be beyond, and people are saying oppositional, but like, what about like antisocial? Like, I don't follow rules, extreme need for control. I'm not going to say what you want me to say. I know where you're going, and I don't want to answer that question, because he does seem like he was thinking ahead of like, what is this question getting at? And that's sometimes why, because I think he wanted a certain narrative out there. And I see multiple people in the comments that were former or current foster parents mentioning that, yes, DSS does not tell you everything about a child's behavior. And that's where, because sometimes there were very important things, because sometimes I was working with a child that did not need to be around younger children, and they're placed in a home that has young children. And so I would make sure to reach out to that family to say, like, hey, just a heads up, these are the safety plans. This is like some of the past behaviors. This, like, you can never leave them alone. I've had to, they were like, why didn't DSS? I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't handle placement, but I'm going to make sure for the safety of my client and the other children in the home, you do need to be aware of this. And so then sometimes, I don't know. Yeah. It's a whole thing. That all foster care system is an entirely different video. So antisocial personality disorder is what we have in the DSM-5. So I'm a clinical psychologist, and we don't have sociopath or psychopath in our big book of medical mental health diagnoses. Antisocial personality disorder, and antisocial meaning against social norms, not I don't like being around people. So antisocial meaning against social norms. Okay. So that's that's that type of behavior. So one of the victim impact statements, one of the women mentioned that she researched antisocial personality disorder, and she felt that, and she's not diagnosing him, but understanding that diagnosis helped her better understand him. Okay. Yes. There is a test, so there might be a psychopathy checklist. Yeah, so there might be, but that's a mental health. That might be a testing instrument. That wouldn't be a potential diagnosis. Okay. And with adoption, people have to be careful of their birth children in the home. So I've worked with families that would sometimes guilt their birth children into like wanting them to it. Like, so the family wants to adopt, the birth children really aren't on board. Like, they're like, ooh, like, I don't know if I'm okay with this having to share, because the foster or adopted children may have high needs. And I've worked with situations that were very complex, and everybody's voice needs to be heard. Okay. It's a great question. Can antisocial personality disorder be helped, fixed, resolved if the person wants to? So a lot of people with antisocial personality disorder at its extreme. So please know, all personality disorders exist on a continuum or a spectrum. So they all exist on a spectrum. Just like we'll talk about narcissism. There are low levels of narcissism, and then like narcissistic personality disorder, high levels of narcissism. Antisocial is the same way, against social norms. Sometimes, I'll just be honest, sometimes Marines can have like low levels So if this side is low, this side is high. Some Marines can have like low levels. Because they're willing to like fight for their country. So I would never pew pew somebody. Like it's just not like I like conventions. I like social norms. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. There are some people that I have some cousins that are in the army, that are in the Marines. And so they may have like low level. They don't have high levels, but they might have low levels of like but for my country, there's now a reason that kind of justifies this behavior and okay. But at the higher levels, that's where people become criminals. That's where sometimes executives that take advantage of people. So sometimes we don't always talk about the antisocial behavior that might not land the person in but they might end up in federal jail for Ponzi schemes or for people that take advantage of people. It might be a car salesperson that's embezzling from the company or something. Like that's kind of that. So everything is on a spectrum. Can truth be on a spectrum? That's a whole separate question. All right. I have to get to my next. So we're going to finish this up so we can hop over to the next video.
Thank you. Did your father tell you that you were destroying his marriage to Jennifer?
I was not destroying his marriage to
That's not
Jennifer.
the question, sir. The question was, did your father tell you that? Did your father tell you that? Yes or no?
What do you want me to say? He doesn't know how to love his wife. What do you want me to say?
Right, I'll sustain the objection as unresponsive. He's unable to answer. Please move on to your next question.
And the judge said unable, which was kind. The judge said unable to answer, and it might have been unwilling. Unable or unwilling. And the jury is seeing all of this. And I think any sympathy that the jury had for him taking the stand might have made it worse. He might have got down to second degree if he hadn't took the stand. Him taking the stand, because we're going to get to a sentence, he's going to be asked a question that's pretty much, it's asking about premeditation. And he's going to answer honestly.
Paid for your flights in 2013 and 2014.
Sure.
As stated, at some point, I'm going to cut off all these questions about perhaps benevolent acts. You can go a bit further, but let's start to move on, okay? I'll overrule the objection. You may finish your question.
Yes. Who paid for your flights to the United States in 2013 and 2014?
This question is pointless, but however, the company who provided
Right.
who had something to do with adoption did. And I don't understand what's the point of this question either.
So the family, so often with an international adoption, sometimes it can cost between $15,000 and $30,000, sometimes more. Adoption is expensive. Now, for a 14-year-old, it might have been cheaper, but like, don't go for the cheap. Like, it might have been less, but like, I personally would not do an international adoption at 14. 14 is that's and the child has been in the orphanage for that many years. So what about Asperger? So autism spectrum, is that ASBD? So maybe, are you saying, so what's IED? Like IED? What is, intermittent explosive disorder? No, like it's feeling more antisocial personality disorder. So intermittent explosive disorder, because he seems to have difficulty controlling his emotions and his rage. Just my general thoughts. I wouldn't do intermittent explosive, because when he doesn't get his way. So intermittent explosive disorder is and that's somebody that just kind of has big reactions. I wouldn't go with that diagnosis. That's another one that I'm not a huge fan of, but that's okay. Doesn't matter.
Why did you drop out of high school?
Because I was being brainwashed, as the rest of the children are.
You dropped out of high school because you were on the verge of getting expelled, weren't you, Mr. Tower?
What expelled? You even know what they teach in schools? What are you talking
Mr.
about?
Tower, answer my question.
I'm answering your question. You don't know what you're saying. These schools today, they don't teach anything the kids should know. And the schools are not for everyone.
Mr. Tower, you dropped out of high school because you were on the verge of getting expelled from high school.
No, I wasn't. I'm telling you that. You ever been to school? You know that schools don't teach kids proper
Mr.
education.
Tower, stop talking.
I'm talking because you don't know what you're talking about.
All right, let's move on to the next question. His answer was no. Please move on to your next question.
In fact, you were about to get expelled because you were fighting with other children in the school and on the bus, weren't you, Mr. Tower?
No, I wasn't. I just told you what happened.
How old were you when you dropped out of high school?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. How old were you when you were in 10th grade?
I said I don't remember.
When you were sitting out in your car before you went into the house on the night of August 31st, did you decide to kill your parents before you walked in?
Yes.
I don't have anything else. Thank you, Your Honor.
So, somebody in the comments mentioned that they felt he might have borderline personality disorder. And the reason why I'm not mentioning, so I did mention cluster B personality traits. So, because narcissism, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder, all of those fall under cluster B. Feel free to disagree. That is not a problem. If people start, like talking about my credentials and things, that's when you might get a chance to like have a different conversation. And so that comment right there, that secured, if I was on the jury, I would have said first degree. Like he said, when he was in the car before he even went in the house, that's when he decided. And then he went into the house. It's my understanding he went to his room, drank some alcohol, and then while they were asleep, he grabbed a knife from the kitchen, and that's when he started attacking. His mother tried to escape, and he went after her, pulled her back. And so this was horrific. And my heart breaks for the family. The impact statements were very, very powerful. Rob Tower, his father, was the one that wants Dima to change his name back, which he's a legal adult if he chose. So if he made that decision, he would be able to. Often that does cost money, but that and he might want to change his name. I don't know. He was convicted. So they've already had sentencing. So they had the verdict. The jury took a few hours to deliberate. They had the verdict. They had sentencing, victim impact statements, everything. And he was given 2 life sentences and 5 years for the attempting to flee from the police. And so this was a very, very heartbreaking case. As I mentioned, I'm an adoption competent therapist, and I wish that the family, I'm sure they tried to find services. I'm sure they tried to find therapists. I could see him refusing to go because based on how Dima presented, I don't think he saw anything wrong with his behavior. And in Virginia, at 12 years old, kids have to agree to be in treatment. So a 12-year-old, so if Dima came to me for therapy at 14 or 15 and he was like, forget y'all, like I don't want this, I don't need this, I couldn't force him to be in treatment. It would be his decision. Now, in Florida, there is Baker Act, but you have to be an imminent risk to yourself or somebody else. And I don't think the family thought there was a sign that it was ever going to get to this place. A lot of people talked about their faith, and somebody talked. Oh, let me read that comment. I took some notes. It was a family friend mentioned that Dima had issues with not getting attention, that he would be physically aggressive with younger children, and um, that he would finish that he was going to finish what he started. Uh, Somebody else mentioned something about compassion, faith, and justice. That yes, you can have compassion, yes, you can have faith, and yes, you can also seek justice. And so this was a heartbreaking case. I do have resources for adoption for adoptees, adult adoptees, because sometimes when we talk about adoption, you just think about like the period before the person turns 18, but some individuals can still struggle after 18 years old. So transitioning into adulthood, and because it seems like there were major issues. Very, very sad case. And my heart goes out to the family. I tried to talk about it in a way where being mindful that if the victim's family ever did see it, that there would be I feel like the family did the best they could with what they knew. And um it's just this was very, very hard, very, very heartbreaking. I think it was Rob's brother. Was it Rob? Let me look it up. It was Jennifer's brother that talked about he's currently working with 2 therapists to continue to heal from what happened. And I hope that the verdict and the sentence, that it gives them a little peace. I do hope it does. But my heart, yeah, like I said, my heart just goes out to them. And I will see you all in the next video. If y'all would like to talk about the Devin Michaels case, if you're not staying around for that one, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will see you next time.